airplane. Just behind the trailing edge of the wing are attachment points for two JATO rockets. The front section of the fuselage ends at former #28. The rear section of the fuselage starts at former #28 and is removable for engine maintenance. The empennage of the MiG-21 consists of a vertical stabilizer, a stabilator and a small fin on the bottom of tail to improve yaw control. The vertical stabilizer has a sweep angle of 60 degrees and an area of 5.32 square meters, one earlier version 3.8 m2, and a rudder. The stabilator has a sweep angle of 57 degrees, an area of 3.94 square meters and a span of 2.6 m. The MiG-21 uses a tricycle-type undercarriage. On most variants, the main landing gear uses tires that are 800 mm in diameter and 200 mm in width. Only the MiG-21F variants use tires with the size 660 200 mm. The wheels of the main landing gear retract into the fuselage after rotating 87 degrees and the shock absorbers retract into the wing. The nose gear retracts forward into the fuselage under the radar. The nose wheel can be lowered manually by simply unlocking its hatch from inside the cockpit. Thus, landing with undercarriage locked in the up position due to an internal failure was not a major issue, with a number of such successful landings on the nose wheel and ventral fuel tank or the air brake. Operational history. India. Overview. MiG-21 F-13 rear view with afterburner. India is the largest operator of MiG-21s. In 1961, the Indian Air Force, IAF, opted to purchase the MiG-21 over several other Western competitors. As part of the deal, the Soviet Union offered India full transfer of technology and rights for local assembly. 8. In 1964, the MiG-21 became the first supersonic fighter jet to enter service with the IAF. Due to limited induction numbers and lack of pilot training, the IAF MiG-21 played a limited role in the Indo-Pakistani War of 1965. 9. However, the IAF gained valuable experience while operating the MiG-21 for defensive sorties during the war. 9. The positive feedback from IAF pilots during the 1965 war prompted India to place more orders for the fighter jet and also invest heavily in building the MiG-21's maintenance infrastructure and pilot training programs. MiG-21 Bison of the Indian Air Force. Since 1963, India has introduced more than 1,200 MiG fighters into its Air Force. As of 2019, 113 MiG-21s are known to be in operation in the IAF. 10. Safety record. The plane has been plagued by safety problems. Since 1970, more than 170 Indian pilots and 40 civilians have been killed in MiG-21 accidents, thus the unofficial nickname Flying Coffin. Over half of 840 aircraft built between 1966 and 1984 were lost car crashes. 11. At least 14 MiG-21s crashed between 2010 and 2013. 12. Poor maintenance and quality of replacement parts has been considered to be a factor in this phenomenon. 12. When in afterburner, the engine operates very close to its surge line and the ingestion of even a small bird can lead to an engine surge /seizure and flaming. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, future. In view of the several incidents that have occurred after the 1999 Kargil War, the modernized MiG-21 Bison seems to have at present the role of an interceptor and possibly a limited role of a fighter aircraft. 18, 19. On the 11th of December, 2013, India's second-generation supersonic jet fighter, MiG-21 FL was decommissioned after being in service for 50 years. 20. The Indian Air Force plans to decommission all MiG-21 by 2025. 15. 1971 Indo-Pakistan War. The expansion of the IAF MiG-21 fleet marked a developing India-Soviet Union military partnership which enabled India to field a formidable air force to counter Chinese and Pakistani threats. 21. The capabilities of the MiG-21 were put to the test during the Bangladesh Liberation War. During the war, the MiG-21s played a crucial role in giving the IAF air superiority over vital points and areas in the Western theatre of the conflict. 22. The 1971 war witnessed the first supersonic air combat in the subcontinent when an Indian MiG-21F claimed a PAF-104, a starfighter with its G-23 twin-barreled 23mm cannon. 23. By the time the hostilities came to an end, the IAF MiG-21FLs had claimed 4 PAF-F-104s, 2 PAF Shenyang F-6s, 1 PAF North American F-86 Sabre and 1 PAF Lockheed C-130 Hercules. But only 2 kills were confirmed, both F-104s. 2 more F-104s were critically damaged by MiG-21 fighters. 24. Pakistan decommissioned all F-104s shortly after the end of the war. 25. According to one Western military analyst, the MiG-21FLs had clearly won the much-anticipated air combat between the MiG-21FL and the F-104 starfighter. 26. Because of the performance of India's MiG-21s, several nations, including Iraq, approached India for MiG-21 pilot training. By the early 1970s, more than 120 Iraqi pilots were being trained by the Indian Air Force. 27. Kargil War. One MiG-21 was shot down by a Pakistani soldier using a shoulder-fired Manpads missile during the Kargil War. 28. On the 10th of August, 1999, 2 MiG-21FLs of the Indian Air Force intercepted and shot down a Pakistani Brigade 1150 Atlantic Maritime Patrol aircraft with an R-60 missile after it allegedly entered Indian airspace for surveillance, killing all on board. 29. Other clashes. During the 2019 Jammu and Kashmir airstrikes, the Pakistan Air Force shot down an Indian MiG-21 and captured its pilot. The MiG-21's debris had fallen in Pakistani-administered Kashmir. The pilot was later returned to India. 30. Indonesia. Indonesian Air Force MiG-21 in the Yogyakarta Air Force Museum. The Indonesian Air Force purchased 22 MiG-21s. In 1962, 20 MiG-21F-13s and MiG-21Us were received during Operation Trikora in the Western New Guinea conflict. Indonesian MiG-21s never fought in any dogfights. Right after the U.S.-backed anti-communist forces took over the government, 13 Indonesian MiG-21s were delivered to the U.S. in exchange for T-33, R-34D, and later, F-5 and F-10 aircraft. All remaining MiG-21s were regrounded and retired due to a lack of spare parts and the withdrawal of Soviet maintenance support. The MiGs were added to the 4,477 TH Test and Evaluation Squadron, Red Eagles, a USAF aggressor squadron at Tonopah Test Range. 31. Vietnam. MiG-21 F-13 in Vietnam. People's Air Force markings exhibited at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Ohio. As may be seen from its range figures, the MiG-21 was designed for very short ground-controlled interception (GCI) missions. It became renowned for this type of mission in the skies over North Vietnam. 32. The first MiG-21s arrived directly from the Soviet Union by ship in April 1966. After being unloaded and assembled, 33 They were given to the Vietnam People's Air Forces, VPAF, oldest fighter unit, the 921st Fighter Regiment, 921st FR, which had been created on the 3rd of February 1964 as a MiG-17 unit. Because the VPAF's 923rd FR was newer and less experienced, they continued to operate MiG-17s, while the arrival of the MiG-19S, J6 versions, from China in 1969 led to North Vietnam's only a missile-armed VPAF MiG-21P landing with the Chute Vietnam People's Air Force MiG-21 number 4324, flown by various pilots, was credited with 14 kills during the Vietnam War. MiG-19 unit, the 925th FR on the 3rd of February 1972, North Vietnam commissioned its fourth and last fighter regiment created during Thieu with South Vietnam, the MiG-21 PFM, Type 94, equipped 927 THFR.34, former MiG-17 pilot Nguyen Hat Chia and his wingman Tran Ngoc Siu intercepted USAF F-105DS while on cap duty over Phi Quien Air Base, aka Noi Bai Air Base, on the 7th of July 1966. Shooting down one piloted by Captain Tomes with a salvo from Tran's UB-16-57/S5M unguided rocket-equipped MiG-21, while flight leader Nguyen was unable to establish a lock on another, wildly evading F-105 with his R-3 SAAM. This was the first instance of VPAF MiG-21 shooting down a piloted enemy aircraft in the Vietnam War. 35. Although 13 of North Vietnam's flying aces attained their status while flying the MiG-21, compare 3 in the MiG-17, many VPAF pilots preferred the MiG-17 because the high wing loading of the MiG-21 made it relatively less maneuverable and the lighter frame-ed canopy of the MiG-17 gave better visibility. 36. However, this is not impression. British author Roger Boniface got when he interviewed Pham Ngoc Lan and Ace Nguyen Nht Chia, who scored victories flying both the MiG-17 and MiG-21. 37. 38. Pham Ngoc Lan told Boniface that the MiG-21 was much faster, and it had 2 atoll missiles which were very accurate and reliable when fired between 1,000 and 1,200 yards. 39, 40, and Chia asserted that, for me personally, I preferred the MiG-21 because it was superior in all specifications in climb, speed and armament. The atoll missile was very accurate and I scored 4 kills with the atoll. In general combat conditions, I was always confident half a kill over an F-4 Phantom when flying a MiG-21. 41, 42. Although the MiG-21 lacked the long-range radar, missiles, and heavy bomb load of its contemporary multi-mission U.S. fighters, its RP-21 Sapphire radar helped make it a challenging adversary in the hands of experienced pilots, especially when used in high-speed hit-and-run attacks under GCI control. MiG-21 intercepts of Republic F-105 Thunderchief strike groups were effective in downing U.S. aircraft or forcing them to jettison their bomb loads. Aerial combat victories 1966, 1972. The VPAF flew their interceptors with guidance from ground controllers, who positioned the MiGs in ambush battle stations to make one pass, then haul-ass attacks. 43. The MiGs made fast and often accurate attacks against U.S. formations from several directions. Usually the MiG-17S performed head-on attacks and the MiG-21S attacked from the rear. After shooting down a few American planes and forcing some of the F-105s to drop their bombs prematurely, the MiGs did not wait for retaliation but disengaged rapidly. These guerrilla warfare in the air tactics, 43, generally proved successful during the war. In December 1966, the MiG-21 pilots of the 921st FR downed 14 F-105 Thunderchiefs without any losses. 44. The USAF and the US Navy had high expectations of the F-4 Phantom, assuming that their massive firepower, best available on-board radar, highest speed and acceleration properties, coupled with new tactics, would provide an advantage over the MiGs. But in confrontations with the lighter MiG-21, F-4s began to suffer losses. From May to December 1966, the USAF lost 47 aircraft, destroying only 12 VBF fighters in return. From April 1965 to November 1968, over 268 air battles occurred over the skies of North Vietnam. North Vietnam claimed 244 downed US aircraft while admitting to the loss of 85 MiGs. Of 46 air battles between F-4S and MiG-21s, losses amounted to 27 F-4 Phantoms and 20 MiG-21s. 45. After a million sorties and nearly 1,000 US aircraft losses, Operation Rolling Thunder came to an end on 1 November 1968. 46. A poor air-to-air combat loss exchange ratio against the smaller, more agile enemy MiGs during the early part of the war eventually led the US Navy to create their Navy Fighter Weapons School, also known as Top Gun, at Naval Air Station Miramar, California, on the 3rd of March 1969. 47. The USAF quickly followed with its own version, called the Dissimilar Air Combat Training, sometimes referred to as Red Flag, program at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. These two programs employed the subsonic Douglas A-4 Skyhawk and supersonic F-5 Tiger II, as well as the Mach 2.4 capable USAF Convair F-106 Delta Dart, to mimic the MiG-21. 48. The culmination of the air struggle over Vietnam in early 1972 was the 10th of May, when VBF aircraft completed 64 sorties, resulting in 15 air battles. The VBF claimed 7 F-4S were shot down. The U.S. confirmed 5 F-4S were lost. 49. The F-4S, in turn, managed to destroy 2 MiG-21s, 3 MiG-17s and one MiG-19. On the 11th of May, 2 MiG-21s, playing the bait, brought 4 F-4S to 2 MiG-21s circling at low altitude. The MiGs quickly stormed the Phantoms and 3 missiles shot down 2 F-4S. On the 13th of May, a MiG-21 unit intercepted a group of F-4S and a second pair of MiGs made a missile attack before being hit by 2 F-4S. On the 18th of May, VBF aircraft made 26 sorties, 8 of which resulted in combat, downing 4 F-4s without any VBF losses. Over the course of the air war, between the 3rd of April 1965, 50, and the 8th of January 1973, each side would ultimately claim favorable kill ratios. In 1972, the number of air battles between American and Vietnamese planes stood at 201. The VBF lost 54 MiGs, including 36 MiG-21s and 1 MiG-21 US, and claimed 90 U.S. aircraft shot down, including 74 F-4 fighters and 2 RF-4C reconnaissance jets. MiG-21s shot down 67 enemy aircraft while MiG-17s shot down 11 and MiG-19s downed another 12. 1 MiG-21 was shot down on the 21st of February 1972 by a USAF F-4 Phantom based at Udornatov, Thailand and piloted by Major Lodge with First Lieutenant Roger Locker as his Weapons Systems Officer, WSO. This was claimed as the first ever USAF MiG kill at night, and the first in 4 years at that time. 2 MiG-21s were claimed shot down by USAF Boeing B-52 Strato Fortress tail gunners, the only confirmed air-to-air kills ever made by the B-52. The first aerial victory was scored on the 18th of December 1972 by tail gunner Staff SGT Samuel Turner, who was awarded the Silver Star. 51-52. The second took place on 24 December 1972, when a 1C Albert E. Moore downed a MiG-21 over the Tai Nguyen Railroad yards. Both actions